Support comes from Rancho La Puerta, offering wellness and spa retreats for 85 years. 3- and 4-night August vacations include sunrise hikes, water classes, yoga, and spa therapies. More information at rancholapuerta.com. Support comes from the Office of the Washington State Auditor, offering the Financial Intelligence Tool, or FIT, providing access to local government financials to members of the public so they can view how their government spends money. More info at sao.wa.gov/FIT.
Seattle is one of the wealthiest cities in the U.S. and also one of the most expensive.
It's home to some of the world's richest people, including billionaire Bill Gates.
But unlike LA or New York, Seattle is all about stealth wealth. You can be standing in line for coffee behind someone in hiking boots who drives a 20-year-old car and never know that they've got millions in the bank.
The wealth in our city is one of the forces driving up the costs of everything from healthcare to housing. But because it's so hidden, it can be a shock to discover how much you really need to get by here.
By some estimates, costs in Seattle have risen more than 20% in just a few years.
I get a lot of clients who make six figures, or maybe them and their partner combined make $250,000, $300,000, and they feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck still. And they don't know how that's possible.
I'm Monica Nicholsberg.
I'm Joshua McNichols, and this is Booming, a podcast about the economic forces shaping our lives here in the Pacific Northwest.
Today, we ask more than 300 Seattleites, how much money would it really take to live comfortably in this city of millionaires?
A six-figure income, at least $180,000 annually.
$230,000 to $250,000 a year to live comfortably.
And if you can't make that much, what can you do to feel more comfortable here? That's coming up.
A year ago, we had a staff of 25 working the grounds of our home. And now we walk by a mattress on the side of the road without thinking twice about it.
I will not accept this life, and neither should you. I mean, would it kill someone to plant a few peonies?
Monica, you've been talking to a lot of people about what's kind of a taboo subject for many people, money. What were you trying to figure out?
Well, we all know that costs have risen a lot in Seattle in the past few years, and that makes it really hard to plan or budget in this city where things have changed so much so fast. That creates a lot of anxiety. There are so many people living here who used to think that they made decent money, but now they're struggling to get by. And I wanted to do some reporting that captures the experience of living in such an expensive city and what people think counts as a comfortable salary these days.
What did you find out?
Well, about 330 people responded. They were mostly 1- to 2-person households. And we should note that this isn't a scientific representative poll, but something we circulated on KUOW and in our community. So of the respondents, people overwhelmingly agreed that it takes at least 6 figures to live comfortably in Seattle. 71% said somewhere between $100,000 a year and $300,000 a year, with most saying somewhere in the 100 to 200 range, though higher than that was a close second. So that leaves out firefighters, teachers, but it includes jobs like software engineers, doctors, and lawyers. And this matches what broader studies say. One nationwide study said that an individual in Seattle needs about $128,000 to live comfortably, and a family of 4 needs over $300,000 a year.
Wow. Well, what's interesting about that is that Seattle's actual median income as of 2024 was $120,000 a year. And that's for households, which usually are more than one individual. So that tells us that most people in Seattle don't make enough money to live comfortably, at least on paper. So for the people you talk to, how do they come up with their estimates for how much money they would need?
Well, a lot of them just calculated what it would take to achieve basic financial milestones like home ownership, retirement, things like that. We heard from a consultant in her early 30s who's trying to save up enough money for a home with outdoor space.
Those kind of start like 700-800 for like most basic. And so like that's kind of what I would need to be bringing in.
There was a dog walker who just wants to pay off debt.
A lot of my adult life has been spent trying to manage money when I don't have very much of it at all. And it's very stressful to do.
I also talked to a new dad who's trying to fit childcare into the budget.
By the time, we're paying for childcare, kind of some of that discretionary stuff is definitely going to tighten, which, might result in an adjustment of kind of the standard of living.
And I chatted with a wine sales rep who just wants to save enough money to retire.
I turned 60 on my last birthday. And my entire life I thought, oh, well, when I'm in my 60s, I'll get to play again. But at this rate, I probably won't be able to retire until I'm 70, which is it's really scary.
It wasn't that long ago that 6 figures seemed like a lot of money. So why isn't that the case anymore?
Well, costs have gone up. There's no sugarcoating that. The median home price in Seattle has increased 43% since 2020.
Yeah, I know now it's around $900,000.
Yeah, and groceries, childcare, healthcare, all of the basics that you can't cut out of your budget, they're all more expensive than they used to be. The health insurance premiums that we pay, for example, are rising at about 10% a year. But there's also something else going on with our perception of how much things should cost and what should be considered a high salary. I talked to Kate Dorman about this. They're a financial therapist, and they said that part of the problem is our perception of what things cost is frozen in our childhood. So if movie tickets cost $0.25 when you were a kid, then $7 seems really expensive. If they were $12, then you can't believe that they're $20 today.
So we're kind of anchored in our childhood, and I think what happens is if people grew up thinking $100,000 is a lot of money, it probably was a lot of money at that time. Today, $100,000 looks really different. It doesn't have the same purchasing power that $100,000 had before.
Now, that's true of every generation, but I asked Kate if the same phenomenon happened with COVID, if we're all anchored in 2019 prices.
Yeah, I think inflation has skyrocketed in just a few years, and that's not common. I think a lot of people are trying to catch up to the idea that the price of eggs is $10 for a dozen or 18 eggs, when just a few years ago it was half that.
Unless you have your own chickens.
I had my own chickens, and we got rid of them during a remodel, and with how many eggs my kids eat, I really regret it.
Yeah. Well, the feed is expensive too.
True. There is no free lunch. Kate also said that lifestyle inflation, meaning the more money you earn, the more expectations you have about the kind of life that you're going to live, that plays a role in our perception of what a comfortable income is. And so does social media, because people tend to post kind of the most glamorous or best version of their lives, and that's all that we see, so it can feel like everyone else is doing a lot better than us.
Yeah. The high cost of living is obviously something that a lot of people are struggling with, but most people can't just go out and make more money. So what can they do to feel more comfortable living in this expensive city?
Yeah, it would be great if it was that simple. But Kate talked about this concept of happy money, which is ways to use the money that you have to cultivate more happiness and contentment. That won't fix the problem of things being more expensive, but it could help us feel better about it. So, for example, instead of thinking about everything that you need to cut out and restrict to make your budget work, Kate recommends making financial goals that you're excited about, that you would be really proud of, like maxing out your 401k or saving up $3,000. That way, you're not just focusing on the negative aspects of what you need to do, what you need to change, and how you're falling short, but you're working towards something that would make you feel good about yourself. If you are trying to cut stuff out of your budget, Kate recommends reducing expenses while also creating a sense of novelty. They said that you can turn everyday drags on your budget into rare treats.
Someone who goes to Starbucks 7 days a week is much less happy than someone who goes to Starbucks 1 day a week, because going to Starbucks becomes a chore. Somebody who goes once a week sees it as a treat, and so they are more likely to get more happiness out of it.
Kate said that the same thing is true for clients who order DoorDash several nights a week. I can definitely relate to this from when I was in my 20s. It just becomes a chore. You're scrolling forever trying to figure out what you want to eat, and it's so expensive. But if you save it for once a month when you want it to be a special treat or when you've had a really long day and you want to give yourself a break, then you can get a lot more joy out of ordering from DoorDash.
Huh. You know, in my family, when we budget line items like this, we've got a category called funny money, which is just basically money you can spend on, frivolous activities.
Yeah, and that's part of happy money too. If you do have a little bit of discretionary money in the budget, then spending it on things like experiences rather than stuff, which sort of like the novelty of that wears off, but the memories of an experience last longer. And then finally, we can all be more thoughtful about how we use social media. It's so easy to compare yourself to your peers or even strangers who seem like they're really living large on Instagram, but you don't know what's happening behind the camera, whether that person is in debt or putting on a facade of wealth. Kate said that all that comparison just isn't healthy.
Hearing all this, it reminds me of something that happens in the world of affordable housing, where the rent you pay is regulated by the government. Your rent is based on the average salaries that people make in your area. And as more wealthy people come in, the average incomes go up and your rent can increase whether you have enough money for it or not. So this is kind of like a microcosm of the whole economy here. More people are moving in with high salaries, and that means that on average, people have more disposable income, and that means that grocery stores and restaurants can charge more.
Yeah, so those of us who have been here all along feel like our salary has less and less purchasing power.
Yeah. All right, coming up next, the end game. All right, welcome back. It's time for the end game, and we've got Lucy Suchek here to help us with that.
Yes. So for this end game, I thought the idea of purchasing power that you mentioned is interesting. And so that's like how much the dollar is worth in different states. And surprisingly, fast food is actually a great indicator of that.
Aren't Chipotle prices like a recession indicator that people follow
They
closely?
probably are, because the thing that I found is that there's something called the Big Mac Index, which is the average Big Mac price that varies from state to state.
Huh.
And so I have some questions for you about this.
Oh, no. I don't think I've been to McDonald's since I was like a child. I'm not going to succeed at this.
Well,
have you, Joshua?
We have a teenager who likes McDonald's. So, yes, we've been recently. I can't remember exactly the cost of a Big Mac, but...
You're in for a real treat.
Okay.
Okay. This data is from like 2024. So it could have changed slightly in the past year.
Okay.
Just to fact check. First question. Which state has the most expensive Big Mac, and how much do you think it costs?
California.
Alaska or Hawaii.
Ooh, that's better.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to guess for Alaska, I'm going to say $7.
Okay.
Oh, gosh. I guess I have to stick with California now. $5.75.
Massachusetts.
What?
And it's $6.72. So
That
you were
tracks.
very close, Joshua.
Ah.
Massachusetts has the most expensive childcare. They have a lot of the most expensive things.
Huh.
And the cheapest Big Mac is actually in Texas, where the average Big Mac costs $4.67.
Wow.
Also tracks.
Yeah. All right, question number 2. Which city has the most expensive Big Mac, and how much does it cost?
Okay, so is it going to be Boston? Because
It's not Boston. Yeah,
Okay.
it's different than the state.
New York City.
Okay.
And is it $6?
Okay.
Okay, and since I was wrong about remote places with high transportation costs being where the main Big Mac is, I maybe San Francisco.
Okay.
Oh, and I am going to guess $8.
The answer is Seattle.
What? Wow.
Yes. In Seattle, it costs $7.06 for a Big Mac.
That's wild. We have the biggest Big Mac inflation in the country.
Most expensive Big Mac in the country.
You know what my college student does? He signs up for the app and then he gets all these special deals. He works
He's
it
a smart
too.
one.
So, yeah.
Nice. And the cheapest is in Austin, actually. So in Texas, it's $4.36.
Huh.
All right, last question. How much have McDonald's food prices increased over the last 5 years? So this is from 2019 to 2024. I'm looking for a percentage.
I bet it's lower than inflation. Would be my guess.
Why?
Well, because their whole business model is predicated on being able to sell things as cheaply as possible. So I feel like they have more motivation to keep their prices lower. I don't know. I could be wrong. I want to say like 7%.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to guess that the prices have risen with inflation, but I noticed that McDonald's tries to keep certain items low and cheap so that they're kind of like the doorbusters. You're like, oh, this item costs, I can get a cheeseburger, plain cheeseburger for this much money. And you go there and you actually order a Big Mac, which is more expensive.
Yes, that's so true.
So I'm going to guess, like 6%.
141%.
No.
Yes.
Oh.
I have some
so
stats
off.
here. French fries went from $1.79 to $4.19, which is 134% increase. A McChicken went from $1.29 to $3.89, a 201% hike. The Big Mac increased 87% from $3.99 to $7.49. And cheeseburgers saw the largest price increase from $1 to $3.15, a
Holy cow.
215% spike.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they still have like a $1 value menu or something? Or
I don't know. That's a good question.
Huh.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe it switches. But
do you think if McDonald's prices come down, then that's a recession indicator?
Probably. Yeah.
We should keep an eye on that.
We should keep an eye on that.
That would be a deflation indicator or something, right?
Yeah, things would not be good, I don't think. I don't think
good.
they want to lower their prices if they've been able to raise them that much.
Yeah.
I'm curious if each of you have your own personal index that you use. Like when I travel, I kind of look at the price of an iced latte and I'm like, oh, it's really cheap here. It's really expensive back where I live. What do you guys look for?
Well, I look at milk a lot, and I was buying nice organic milk, and at the store I shop at, it's gone way too high for us, so we kind of downshifted, and
I
are just
also
having.
don't buy nice milk anymore.
Yeah, and cheap milk is fairly cheap still.
It's like $2 something. Yeah.
I don't have one. What kind of economics reporter am I? I'm going to come up with something.
Yeah, get on
back,
that, Monica.
I'll come back to you on that.
We'll check back in.
Okay.
That's it for Booming. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you to Zeki Hamid and the community engagement team at KUOW for helping us with this survey.
If you have a question about the economy that you want us to answer, email us at booming@kuow.org.
Also, if you've donated to the show recently, thanks a lot. This is so important to keep this show going. So if you want to donate, go to kuow.org/booming. Thanks.
Our producers are Lucy Suchek and Alec Cowan. Our editor is Carol Smith. I'm Monica Nicholsberg.
I'm Joshua McNichols.
And we'll see you next time.
Planet Money helps you understand the economy. We find the people at the center of the story.
Garbage in New York, that was like a controlled substance.
We show you how money influences everything.
Tell me what you like by telling me how you spend your money.
And we dig until we get answers.
I had a bad feeling you were going to bring that up.
Planet Money finds out. All you have to do is listen. The Planet Money Podcast from NPR.